Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, professional Nine-Dango player. In this video, one of the points I'll focus on is how white should invade black's area on the top side in this position. So in the game, they showed us one of the basic, what I would call a middle game Joseki for how to attack black's Ogema Shimari. So that's black's corner enclosure in the top left corner. So I'll be talking about that Joseki, which they played in the game. And I'll also be talking about another option that white had. Players are Honinbo Shusaku and Ota Yuzo. So Honinbo Shusaku, he was already the heir of the Honinbo school at this time. He was 24 years old, and he had recently promoted to 7 Dan. He'd already been playing in the castle games for a few years, and so that's his famous winning streak of 19 games. He was already well into that. And he was the strongest player of his time. Ota Yuzo has been called his strongest rival. He was actually Shusaku's mentor because when they first played, Shusaku was 13 years old and taking 2 stones against Ota Yuzo. So they played several games of 2 stones actually. While Shusaku was a very practical player, you might say, he was very good at controlling the board and creating a winning position. He's famous for his games with black, of course, because he was very good at creating a winning position with the no komi game. He was actually a very good player with white also, of course. Ota Yuzo was a more artistic style. I would say he preferred the beautiful and exciting variations. He never promoted to 8 Dan, so that makes him one of the strongest 7 Dans in the history of Go, if you ask me. Okay, so let's start the game. Okay, so white plays 3-5 point and an early kakari, leaving an empty corner. So both of those things are supposed to be bad, according to opening theory. The 5-3 point is sort of out of favor in modern Go because AIs don't like it. And that's because if you compare the 5-3 point in the lower right corner to black's 3-4 point in the top left corner, white's pretty much limited to this shimari. So white has some other ways to make a corner enclosure, but they're sort of unorthodox and a bit flimsy sometimes. So this is the one solid corner enclosure white can play. And so white's limited in his choice of the next move. So black has choices like at least these 4 corner enclosures, which include the big shimaris, the big corner enclosures, which are these 2, which AIs like to play so much. And so I'd say that's why AIs tend to give the 3-4 point a better score. And white's early kakari, this is a tactic we saw a lot in the Edo era. So this game is in the 19th century. The idea was that since there was no komi, white had to play actively. And so this kakari was one of the ways white tried to create a fighting game and play very actively to find a way to make up for the fact that white had no komi, so white was at a slight disadvantage. So black plays an immediate pincer, and white plays this Joseki. So this particular Joseki and various moves that with a similar idea, they were fairly popular in this era. So what white's trying to do here is white is pressing on black's stone on the side, so black's pincer stone, creating a fairly strong group there so that white can play strongly against black's stone in the corner. So this is how it works. And I'd say the sequence up to white's pincer at c6 is the basic Joseki when they play this way. So it was a Joseki at the time, not played so much nowadays. One of the important points about this is that white started with a stone in the lower right corner, which prevented black from getting the whole side. So it's important that white had a stone in that corner also. When white plays the pincer at c6, white's making miai of an approach move against black's corner in the top left, which would make good use of white's wall. And also white is 1 move away from capturing the black stone in the lower left corner. So it's more important for black to stop white from making a big side there on the left side, so black plays a shimari. It turns out this is not a ladder breaking move. The ladder still works for white. And it's also a net sometimes. So the game move was white capturing here. This is what we used to call a honte. And the idea with honte is that it's a correct move. It gets rid of all the bad aji associated with the possibility of black escaping with that stone. But it turns out it was just slow. So white should have pushed here. This would actually establish a net. So if black answers here. And there's also the fact that playing this shimari in the lower right corner was an urgent point. Because if black gets to play there, the white stone will be in a lot of trouble. So playing this shimari was important. There's also the fact that it's actually a net now. So if black escapes here, of course white could capture in a ladder, but if the ladder doesn't work, white has a net. And so it's the amount of mileage black can get out of this aji is limited because white has multiple ways to capture the stone. Of course, the ladder is good too, but if white has a net, that adds safety to white's position. So this is how white should have played. Obviously, black's not going to try to escape there. Maybe something like this would follow. And white's getting a big side there too. So this would be an even result. With no komi, of course, black still has a lead. White took. So that was a slow move. And white pressed here. This is the move that they liked to play at the time. There was a period in the 20th century where there were some top players who didn't like this Joseki for white. But now we're back to playing it because AIs give it a good score. And it's working in this board position. So white plays an unusual shimari. It would have been normal for white to play this shimari. It still has a weakness at R3 or S5. So there's some weakness in the corner there. But there's also, I'd say he's aiming at this move here, which is a weak point in black's position. So we're going to see that happening later. And so that stone, that high stone that white has played at Q5, does sometimes work well with an attack at M4. So that could be what Ota Yuzo was thinking about. And black plays this. So this move shows Shusaku's positional judgment, and it's the perfect move in this position. It's slightly reinforcing the top side. So just to go back one move, at this point, the right side of the board is relatively small. So it's a wide open side, but black's group in the corner is fairly strong. And black has a living group on the bottom side. Let's just get rid of that marker. So this group, it's strong enough for the time being. And so it's not really an area where fighting will break out, and white doesn't have so much potential in the center. So the right side is probably smaller than the top side and the left side. And the lower left corner is also going to be an issue. So what this move does is it makes miai of another move on the left side and the lower left corner. So if white tries to kill the corner, black would immediately play here, and this would be a big move. So not only is black getting a very good shape on the left side with stones on the fourth and third lines, making a nice territory, it's also adding some potential life to black's stone at C4. So with the stone at 2, black's stone can still move out sometimes. For instance, with an attachment here or an attachment here, there would be some potential for black's stone to come back to life. So since 2 is such a big move, white extended here. And now it's important for black to kick here. This will allow black's group in the corner to live. So this is going to be alive. So these 2 points were miai. So that's how this stone was working. Since white had a strong position in the center, it was important for black to sort of take one step towards the left side, reducing the potential for white to make a moyo out of that. So this is the position I showed at the beginning of the video, where my question is, how should white invade the top side? It turns out that actually Katago was suggesting this move, which I'm going to talk about later. So in this position, I want to talk about the top side. So the game move was white playing here. And this is hitting one of the weak points of the Ogema Shimari. So black Shimari in the corner has a weak point at c17, which from white's point of view, it works really well with this stone at f17. So white's preparing to invade at the 3-3 point. Another option, though, would be to focus on black's weak stone at l17. So that was my idea, actually, to play on the right here, and focus on black's stone on the right. So if black plays something like this, white would be able to extend here and get the 2-space extension. Or if black plays on this side. So this is an example of something I made with the help of Katago. So partly computer generated, but it's the general idea. White is going to give black the area in the top left. So white wanted to play a lot of forcing moves against it, and this worked fairly well. And then white will pincer here, creating a weak black group on the top side. So in this diagram, white's groups in the top right and on the top side are stronger than black's group on the top side. And white has a strong position on the bottom side facing towards the center. So white has some potential to attack here. And black got the territory. So it was a trade, fairly even position. So that would actually be maybe how I would proceed. It was an option for white. Let's get back to the game and talk about the move that was played. So white played here. Now this is threatening the corner. If black defends the corner with something like this, then white could play an extension here. So black pincers. And white plays here. So white had other ways to do this, but the 3-3 point is the usual Joseki. So we'll just focus on this one. When white plays here, black can play a hane at c16, which was the game move, or extend at d16. Actually, Katago wanted to extend. Locally, this is easy for white because white plays this one. This is sort of similar to white invading the 3-3 point against a star point. So if we imagined that black's original stone was at 1 and white invaded at the marked stone and black covered here, we would revert to a star point Joseki. So it turns into that Joseki where white gets to play the hanesugi and can slide to make a living shape. Black 7 here in the lower left corner. This was a big point. So I think the reason that this diagram got a good score with Katago was because it gave black sente to play at 7. If white continues locally, black can just sacrifice the 1 stone. And this diagram would be a winning diagram for black. So black is getting thickness towards the center, so is getting an area on the top side there. Black 7 was also a very important move, which reinforces the lower left corner. So this would be a good variation for black. Okay, back to the game. In the game, black covered here. So sometimes this involves a ladder. So white's best local move is to play down here. And this is the variation that involves the ladder. So the ladder has to favor white for this to work. And the ladder I'm talking about is when black plays here and here. If white had to play something on top and black got to play here, this would not be working very well for white. So this would be a failure for white. But actually the ladder favors white and white can cut here. So the ladder I'm talking about is this ladder where black chases these 3 white stones. It's going to hit white's ponnuki. So the ladder favors white and this would be bad for black. So when the ladder favors white, black can't escape in this direction. So for instance, if black does something like this, white gets to capture this stone. So obviously bad for black. The Tesuji is for black to play here. So this was the game move. And if you're playing with black in this position, this is the move to remember. So what happens is if white plays like this, black will be able to defend on the outside. Otherwise, black has filled one of white's liberties and is going to win the semi. So white's correct move is to continue playing on the outside. And white did get a kind of a squeeze here. So this was a Joseki variation. In this case, white played the knight's move because of black's ogema shape. So because of the position of this black stone, this became a forcing move, threatening to attach here. So this is where the computer showed me a different variation. The game move was white just played a shape move here. So this is good shape. It wasn't quite active enough. So white should have played here. So this is a common shape when black has the two-space extension. It's not unusual for white to play this shoulder hit and then attach here. So it's a way for white to cover black from above and create a position towards the center. So for instance, if black plays the wedge here, white can get a position towards the center. Otherwise, if black plays a hane on the other side, white will extend here. You can see white's still looking at the curling around at J14. So that's why white waited to play the tari at H18. But when black pushes here, now it's okay to play the tari. And white got a little territory there on the left, about 10 points maybe, while black got a wall, but the wall is not going to work so strongly. So this move in the game was good shape, but maybe not active enough. So black kicks here. So this finishes black territory in the corner. It takes away a base from the white group. And it's sort of typical for Shusaku to have very few groups that can potentially get into trouble. So black's one weak group, you might say, is the black group on the top side. That's a two-space extension. It's not 100% alive yet. So for instance, if white does something like this, black will have to eventually do something to make eye space for that black group. So black would play some local move maybe. Okay, so this is where I'm going to talk about how white should play on the bottom side. So we have two black groups, this black group and this black group. And they're both pretty close to being alive, but there is some potential for white to attack here. So we're going to look at the game move first, which allowed black to defend the corner. It was actually better for white to play a hane here. So we're going to look at that one. So this would be an attack against black's group in the corner. And it would be setting up an attack at L3. So white's real aim is to dive in at L3 and make some trouble for black's group on the side. So if white gets to play really actively here, this would be a way for white to sort of justify the ponuki here. So this position here, it's very strong. Obviously, being so strong, white doesn't have to worry about black playing any moves in the vicinity. So if white can sort of push black towards that ponuki, push black out into the center, then the ponuki is going to work as a strong position. So white does want to try to find a way to disrupt black's area on the bottom side. So white 1 and 3 here are starting that. Black has to play a hane here at 4 in order to have eye space in the corner. So in this variation, black still needs one more move in the corner and can play it this way. So this variation, and white's going to attack here. So this was the whole point of white's attack towards the corner. It was to get these two stones here, which are setting up this. So they're filling a liberty of the 3 black stones on the J and H lines, and also reducing black's eye space on the side. So when white plays here and here, black can capture the 2 stones, but it would not be a living shape. So for instance, if black plays here, so for instance, if we look at it like this, if black captures the 2 stones, that's not a living shape. So the black stone, that's a 3-stone dead shape there inside black's territory. So although black can capture the stones, it's not going to be a living shape. So that's the whole point here. White might leave the those forcing moves for later. So white could immediately play here, which would also be an option. 27 is a key shape move, sort of threatening to cut at m4 and make some kind of a squeeze. So white won't be able to kill the black group, obviously, but hopefully white will be able to push it around a bit and use the attack to... Primarily, white's aim would be to reinforce the lower right corner. So if black plays on the outside here, white would play here. And again, white's aim would be to reinforce the lower right corner. So this would be an exciting way for white to play. And it was white's last chance to start a real attack against the black group. So in the game, white covered here. And so this wasn't as effective as the diagram I was just showing you because it's missing a white stone here. So white didn't get that extra stone there. It makes the attack much less effective. Okay, so here white is starting on a fight. White did have the option of playing this move still. So this was the way white could attack black on the lower side. It turns out white's stone on the right side at R11 is a ladder breaking move. So the ladder is when white pushes through here and cuts on the second line. There's a ladder that white has to be aware of, which is this one, where black, if the ladder favors black, black could just chase that ladder, and eventually if white takes there, black would play an Atari from the outside and capture the whole thing. So if the ladder favors white, white can actually cut at 7. And black would be able to save everything, but white would get an extra squeeze with 11. So this squeeze would be pointing towards the center, and it would be functioning in this case, setting up, so if black plays as black did in the game, and they get into something like this, then there's going to be a fight towards the center. So having thickness towards the center is sort of working for white in this position. So that's how white 9 and 11, kind of a squeeze there, are functioning in this board position. In the game, white did this immediately. Black fills a liberty. When black pushes here, it's putting pressure on white's stones on the top side. If black gets to play here, these two stones are cutting stones, so white can never sacrifice these stones. White played a hane, filling black's liberties. Usually this is supposed to be a good shape for white because white has played on the head of two stones. So that's, according to the proverb, that's the key point to put black in damezumari. Black handles that by starting with the Atari here, playing some forcing moves against the right side, and then cutting here. So this is the reward. The cut here is coming at a vital point in white's shape. White defends, and black played here. And white had to defend the top side. And before capturing, so black can make a net here. Black is going to make a net there. But before capturing that, he played this forcing move. So while it's still important to capture these two stones, he's going to play the forcing moves here and here, establishing a shortage of liberties for white. So next, black can escape here, but first he has to take the net. So he made a strong position in the center, and with this position, black has reduced the value of white's strong position on the bottom side. And white captured, and black continued here. So with this move, black is dealing with the final weak group, which was black's group on the top side. So white plays here, and black does not cut. So black's aim with this sequence is to make a strong group on the top side. So he doesn't necessarily have to cut at M14. Okay, so white does this, and he played away. So this maybe was the losing move. White should play here, and this would be defending the corner, so making a corner territory. And it would also be looking to play this variation on the bottom side to squeeze black. So make a strong position there. And there would still be the cut here, which could happen later. This could lead to an attack against black's group. So this would be one way for white to play. And it might be actually better than playing this immediately, which would give black a relatively safe shape. So this would be the other option. So in the game, white played away and black invaded here. And they got into this exciting variation where white bumped against black. Anything like this would allow black to connect underneath. So that's why white is trying to stop black from doing that. When white does this, if black defends on the left, white can push through here. So that would be a failure for black. But of course, if black defends on the right, white can push through here. Black found a Tesuji that captures the two white stones. It sort of captures the two white stones. We'll look at variations. So if you want to find the Tesuji yourself, this is where you pause the video. Okay, I'm going to go on to the answer. Black attached. At P2, that was the Tesuji. Very similar to what happened in the top left corner. It's a Tesuji, so if white pushes through here, black gets a forcing move here. And then could just pull out here. And so this would obviously be bad for white. White's in trouble on the side, and black's escaped out into the center. If white could actually play an Atari here and push through. In this case, black would just connect underneath. And black's two stones in the center might be captured, but black got plenty of territory towards the corner. So this was a success for black. In the game, white just pushed through here. So this was white's correct move. And white played here, surrounding black on the side. It turns out black's group on the side had no trouble living. So if white plays down here, there is some aji in the center with black pushing through here. But if we just ignore that, black can play here. And next, there's a connection underneath with the corner. Or if white plays on this side, black can live here. So black has that living shape on the side. White continued here. This was attacking black's shortage of liberties. And he's attacking black's group on the top now. And I think actually Ota Yuzo is sort of setting a trap, because there's a really exciting variation that's about to start where black tries to attack white in the top left. So black plays here and extends. So cutting here, black would play here. This would be pretty pointless because white's not getting eyes and black's getting a good position on the outside. So breaking into black's territory on the left was not an option. And black has surrounded white's group on the top side. So it looks like white's in trouble. If black's too greedy, black can get into trouble. So let's try various moves for black. One would be connecting here. This would be kind of the intuitive move, which extends black's liberties in the center. So this is how black will get an extra liberty in the center to have 4 liberties in the center, and black can cut here, but white will push through. In this variation, it turns out black doesn't really have a good way to fill white's liberties on the top side. So black would play here, white would cut here, still threatening h15. And for the time being, black has 4 liberties on the outside, and white has 3. But when white connects here, it's more than 4 liberties. So for one variation, if black defends the center, white's going to play here. This gives white a living shape because white can connect up on the side. And so this would be bad for black because black actually has to add one more move to have a living shape. So black would need one more move here, and white would be able to capture black in the center. So that would be a disaster for black. So if black continues the semi, usually you would want black to play at f19, but black would then lose the semi. So locally, if we look at it locally, actually let's have white push through here once. and white would fill a liberty. Black doesn't have time to play here because black would lose by one move. So black would play this way. Sorry. Black would play like this. And if white fills this liberty, it's going to be a ko. So this would be a ko variation. Probably good for white. This looks dangerous for black. If white wins the ko, there's still the issue of black's group on the top side not being alive. So I think this is a good variation for white. So black could not connect here. Another option would be to cut here immediately. The problem with this is that black's stone's in the center. Actually, black has trouble extending the liberties. So one variation would be, yes, this one where black squeezes. So in this case, black gets to play here. So this fills white's liberties to make it a three liberty group. So even if white plays here locally, black can play here. So in the local position, white has no more than 3 liberties. So there's no way for white to extend those liberties. However, white can win in the center by just filling liberties here. So it doesn't really matter how white chases this. It's just 2 liberties for black, and white's winning. So that's another way black can fail. Otherwise, black could play here, in which case white pushes again. White has 4 liberties, and black has 4 liberties on the outside. It looks like it might be sort of difficult for white to fill those liberties, but it turns out with all this thickness on the bottom side of the center, white can actually fill liberties. So in this variation, white can attach here. And black has no way to extend the liberties. So white chases like in a ladder, and black actually can't get away. So there's no way for black to extend the liberties. So white would just fill liberties just about any way. And white's going to win by 1 liberty. So let's fill all of the liberties this time. And we see white winning by 1 move. Okay. So there's a lot of ways where it looks like maybe black can capture this white group, but nothing really works. And so that's why I'm saying it's maybe a trap where a weaker player might have sort of jumped at one of these variations, and it would have been a crash for black. But Shusaku found this move, which is a probe. So if white connects here, obviously black is threatening to cut at f16. So if white connects here, in this case now black can do this variation. And it's magically a win for black because black has 4 liberties and white has only 3. There's no way white can extend the liberties of this group. And that's because in the other variation, connecting at f16 wasn't the correct move. So in this variation, the correct move was to cut at 8 so that white could connect here and get a good shape on the top side. So if white connects there, then this is going to be a crash for white. The game move was here. Might have been slightly better for white to play here. If white plays this way, black is going to sacrifice the 3 stones in the center. And it turns out black does have a winning position. So something like this. And it's a winning position for black. But this was white's best variation. And if it was a komi game, if white had 6.5 points komi, white would have had a winning chance. It would have been undecided. The fact that there's no komi makes this a win for black. So this was going to be Shusaku's winning variation. Okay, in the game white connected here. This also stops black from cutting at f16. But black got to push through at j11. So this is better than the diagram I was just showing. Better for black, that is. Okay, so when black cuts here, White should probably play, maybe for instance, something like this would be a safe move. It's because black is threatening the cut here. So if black pushes through and cuts here, white can push through like this. And this is an Atari, which means white can capture the two stones. So something like this. So that's why the cut doesn't work. It means that black has a number of forcing moves in the vicinity. So black is going to use those forcing moves in relation to this cut. So white played here and black peeped. So this peep is threatening if white answers it, black can cut here and capture these white stones. So white played here and black got to push through here. So this was just Yuzo setting up a resignation, I think. I think at this point he knew he was losing, so he was trying to die in a interesting fashion. Starting a ko here. And the loss of white's whole group on the right side was really big. And it turns out white did capture black on the lower side, but black's group in the corner is not going to be easy to kill. So black played here, and this is where white resigned. So white's best move is probably to extend here, in which case black gets two eyes. And there is a ko in the corner, but it's equally dangerous for white. So the fact that white's going to lose a lot of territory when white loses this ko, and it's also not a direct ko because white has to win at C2 also, so it's not a direct ko. It's just not a winning ko for white. So if white tries to kill by playing a hane on the first line, black could just play here. It links in with black's forcing moves on the left side. So in this case, black would have an eye in the center with 6 here. Otherwise, black could play here. This works also because white has a shortage of liberties on the side. So white's going to run out of liberties. It's going to be a ko in any case. And black will be happy with a ko trade. So black has ko threats on the bottom side and some ko threats in the center too. So black would be using those ko threats. So at this point, Ota Yuzo resigned. As I said in the beginning, I think the biggest thing about this game is the fight on the top side, where they showed us a basic Joseki for how to invade that area. So thanks for watching, and thank you to my supporters at Patreon who make these videos possible.